I'm standing there with a quitclaim deed in my hand already recorded at the county while Mark's lawyer says I signed it before a notary. On the page, the signature looks exactly like mine, the long tail on the Z in Alvarez that a nun trained into me decades ago. I don't argue the signature. I look at the thin green streak of paint on my wrist, the kind you only get from steadying a window frame, and I remember where I was in the hour they say I signed. If this house could speak, I say folding the deed, it would testify for me. And then I let the silence settle, because a man can be right and still be outnumbered by paper. If a letter from the county recorder told you your home was no longer in your name because of a signature you never made, what would you do? Please like this video, subscribe, and share your take in the comments. Would you stand up and fight or keep quiet to keep the peace at home? California light slips through the thin kitchen blinds like it always does. Soft and gold speckling the oak table where my coffee cools beside a stack of color-coded folders. I sort pills into the day of the week organizer click by careful click, then check the paper calendar taped to my fridge. Mortgage statement marked paid extra to principal in my handwriting, the tail of the L, long and stubborn as the man who wrote it. Mine lives in lists, labels, and the sound of paper sliding into the right place. The house has a clean smell in the morning coffee cut grass from the neighbor's yard, a trace of lemon oil from last night's wipe down. Emily texted me the week before Dad it would help if we could move in for a little while. To save. I said yes because I missed her, and because a father's no is complicated once a child has had their heart broken or made big plans. Just for a bit, she said again when she came with boxes labeled in careful handwriting, kitchen books, winter things. He smiled wide at me. Patel from next door leaned over the fence with mangoes, said what people say when they see a man almost at the finish line. Nearly done with the mortgage, and in California, the house is better than gold. I said what I always say, just trying to keep what's mine. Mark laughed easy and warm and said, "One day we'll buy another Mr. Patel." The way he said we turned in my ear like a screw finding soft pine. The cart of their things kept edging toward my side of the garage, where my pegboard hangs with wrenches and painter's tape, where the hose reels and a coffee can full of screws sit above the old workbench. "Temporary," Mark said, apologizing without moving anything. "Optimize the paper trail," he said, tossing terms around like confetti, title recorder's office, tax efficiency, legal clarity. He was not wrong. Legal clarity is how you keep the ground from slipping out from under your feet in this country. But some clarity belongs in a single name when that name has paid for it year after year. The house is the part of my life that stayed when Maria didn't. If we put me on the title, he said, future financing gets easier. "No," I said without a raise in my voice, thinking out loud. But the thought did not go back into his head. I could feel it walking the hallways like a draft from a door someone didn't close. "He admired my signature, the way you drag the Z in Alvarez. That's distinctive," he said with a grin, and I made a joke about nuns wrapping knuckles for sloppy handwriting. He asked to scan my driver's license to digitize the family records. "Everything's online now, Mr. Alvarez," he said, and Emily, who loves order and backup, smiled. I handed it over for 1 minute and watched the small scanner drink the image. I remember Alex walking in mid-scan, frowning hands pushed deep in his hoodie. "Why does anyone need to scan Dad's ID?" he asked, and Mark said, "So we can find it when we need it." And the scanner beeped its polite beep. Alex has a reputation in this house, too many odd jobs, not enough clear goals, a way of standing that says he's ready to duck an argument rather than fight one. "Let me know if he wants your passwords," he said to me that night in the garage, low voice, eyes on the pegboard. I already did. He nodded once and opened the coffee can of screws like a boy, again pretending to help me fix a hinge. Some mornings are quiet enough to hear the tiny tick of the kitchen clock over the hum of the fridge. Paint has a smell of work well underway, sharp at the start, then calm like something solved. I put a small roll of painter's tape in my shirt pocket, roll up my sleeves, and end up with a smear of color on the inside of my wrist. "They scare people for ratings," he said. "Everything's fine if you do it by the book." He likes the word book, how it promises rules and order. A business card appeared on the table the next day. "Mobile notary 24/7. I asked if someone left it. "I met him at a coffee shop. It's super convenient," Mark said, tapping the card like a drumbeat. He started taking pictures for documentation. He said our freshly painted trim, the chimes by the porch, even my file drawers arranged like a rainbow for people who understand how to stay sane through paperwork. "Send me a pic of that account number," he'd say to Emily, and she would, because she trusts the people she loves. I watched him out of the corner of my eye while pretending to read the grocery circulars. Every couple of days, the county sends something, lists of recorded documents, reminders, flyers about how to protect yourself from scams. I slide them into a general folder after I read them. I tuned the radio to a Motown station and took my paint tray back out to the west-facing window, the one that catches heat around 4 p.m., painter's tape down the edge, brush thinned with a drop of water. When the light hit the wet paint, the sage went almost silver. It's a small joy, the way a room softens around a new color. I set the brush aside, stepped into the yard, and picked a lemon so sweet it perfumed my hands. Sunday night, after they came home with tired feet and a half-eaten box of favors, I checked my appointment for the next morning. I laid out my insurance card, a handwritten list of medications, and the form the clinic always asks you to update. In the morning, I drove over early because clinics run late and I don't like losing a day to waiting. The nurse laughed when I asked for extra gauze because I'm the kind of man who likes to leave with what I'll need later. I signed for the copay, folded the receipt into my wallet, and asked the receptionist to print a visit summary. "You can get it in the portal," she said kindly. Back home, I put the summary in the red-tabbed health folder and a copy in a smaller sleeve inside my planner. Then I went back to the window and painted the second coat. When I reached to steady the sash, a dab of green marked the thin skin at the inside of my wrist. That evening, Emily cooked chicken with garlic and lemon, the house warm and bright, the steam fogging the window a little. Mark told a story about a friend who leveraged equity to kickstart a business. He said it like a magic trick: turn the money you already have into more. "That's what smart people do," he said. "I have done 2 smart things in my life. I married Maria, and I did not gamble the house." The next day, Mark offered to organize our documents as a family, his phrase. He suggested one shared folder for taxes, utilities, anything related to the property. He said our every time he meant your and property every time I heard home. He sat at the dining table with a scanner as sleek as a lipstick case and smoothed bills with the side of his hand so they would feed clean. He has a way of moving through the house without rattling it, always keeping an eye out. He meant Mark, but he didn't say it. You can love your sister and not trust her husband at the same time. A man could be forgiven for thinking that if he put things in the right order, the world would do him the courtesy of leaving them that way. I remember the feel of the air that week, cool in the mornings, hot enough midday to press the smell of sun-baked stucco into the alleys. A little cramped with the kids back home, but good. Before a storm, there's a kind of shine on everything, like a lemon, polished like paint set, mini CTA to listeners. Have you ever kept quiet to keep the peace at home even when your gut told you something was off? "Clinic copay," he asked. On the coffee table lay that notary card, face up, and beside it a flyer. The county sends out sometimes how to record documents, what to watch for, a big block of bold type about verifying identities. The notary card stayed where it was, like a small flag on a map I wasn't finished drawing. I did not know which hour exactly starts a storm. I only know that houses remember hands, the ones that carried their lumber, the ones that paint their frames, and the ones that shuffle papers about them like men shuffling a deck. I knew the smell of the paint on my skin. That, I told myself, was the comfort of having a system a man could wake to the same rituals, and trust they meant safety. I learned it the hard way on a factory floor where the machines didn't care whether you were thinking about bills or ball games. The foreman taught me how to listen for trouble, a belt whining too high, a bearing thudding offbeat like a heart skipping. If you didn't, the machine taught you once and you never forgot. That's where my lists began. Torque specs, order numbers. Who needed what? By Friday, inked in block letters that wouldn't smear when sweat touched the page. Maria said my lists were a love language I didn't know how to speak. We were young when I put down a tiny down payment on this stucco house, a rectangle of rooms with a stubborn little lemon tree out back. When overtime dried up, I fixed hinges and patched drywall for neighbors on weekends, the garage smelling of pine shavings and mineral spirits. Every month I wrote extra to principal on the memo line, a small jab into the mountain. The kids grew up in the corners of this place, measured by pencil marks on the hallway doorframe. Alex was the kid who left a trail pockets full of screws and rocks, and once a frog he forgot to mention. Maria knew how to build a soft life in a hard world. Then came the year the steam smelled like something else, bleach and hospital soap, and the beeping machines didn't sound like hearts, but like clocks running down. I learned a different kind of list: medications, appointments, short walks to keep the blood moving. When Maria and I signed her advance healthcare directive, we did it the right way. The notary wore a cardigan and had a stamp that thunked like a gavel. She asked for Maria's driver's license, then mine turned them under the lamp. Compared photo to face, name to woman, watched Maria sign. The notary journal was a book you had to respect line for line, date and time, the kind of careful that keeps strangers honest. When Maria asked afterward if she did it right, I told her she did everything right. We made another small, simple will after she died because paperwork doesn't wait for grief to finish. I put the will in the blue folder with the mortgage, the insurance in yellow, the taxes in white, the health papers in red. It starts with a jar on the top shelf of my closet where I slipped 20s for months until the jar held enough to say something heartfelt. Emily and Mark kept saying they'd buy Lily a laptop next month for school. I went to the store with Alex, and we stood under the bright lights while a kid in a polo shirt talked about processors and RAM like he was reading poetry. "Get the pen," Alex said. "She'll draw on it." We brought the box home and I tucked it into the back of the hall closet behind the winter blankets. I wrote to Lily for the drawings you haven't made yet on a card and hid that too. I figured I'd give it to her when the time was right, the kind of surprise that slides a door open in a kid's head and lets light flood in. There was another bill I paid without telling anyone. Emily once had a hospital balance left over from a surgery where the insurance company decided a stitch was 2 stitches and covered only 1. A father's job is sometimes to pick up a weight while pretending he didn't. After Maria, I talked to the house more. But I'd stand in the kitchen with the first coffee of the day and tell it the plan patched the hairline crack above the laundry room sand, the rough edge on the back door so it wouldn't catch, replace the weather stripping before the rains. My signature changed after Maria. I still looped the A and dragged the tail on the Z habit long as bone, but there was a weight behind it I didn't notice before. If you were here on an ordinary Saturday in those years, you'd find me in the garage with the radio low and the workbench clean. Patel told me again I was smart to keep the mortgage payments steady, asked when I'd finally celebrate. When the paper says, "paid in full," I'd answer, and even then I'd keep the habit of extra to principal because habits are what hold you when luck doesn't. I didn't. I saw the usual things, Emily's texts so tidy you could file them. Alex's schedule pinned to the fridge and then ignored because gigs don't honor plans, a county mailer here and there about how to record documents, how to keep your identity safe. He said, "Sir," without a joke in it. He brought Maria flowers wrapped in brown paper, and she liked him for that. Later, after Maria, when he sat at my table and talked about building something of his own, I wanted to see in him what Emily saw. I kept the county letters in a white folder, the insurance cards in yellow, the will and mortgage in blue, the health stuff in red. I kept the notary card from Maria's directive because the lady wrote her phone number on the back in neat script, and neat script comforts me. If I had to swear to anything, it would be this. Most of what keeps a family together happens off stage. It's the bills you pay without a speech, the gifts you hide. So the surprise hits at the right angle, the door you fix so it doesn't slam and wake a child. If you want to know what kind of man I am here, I would rather be called cheap than watch a roof leak. People will say that's pride. Pride built this house. Pride and a willingness to mop floors when the sink overflows and not tell anyone you did. I took Emily once to the recorder's office when she needed a copy of a birth certificate. It felt like the opposite of chaos. That kind of order is a comfort and a danger at the same time. Not long before they moved in, I put away the jar from the closet and wrapped Lily's laptop in blue paper. I wrote her name in my best steady hand and slid the box under the bed so she wouldn't stumble on it early. I tucked the paid medical receipt for Emily deeper into the red folder. I walked through the house room by room, the way I do when something is about to change, touched the mantel, touched the door frame with the pencil marks, open and closed the back door to make sure it still kissed the jamb and didn't stick. I didn't know then what it would feel like to be told I'd signed away my own roof. That's the quiet truth behind a word like cheap. It's the math of love done without spectacle, paid in cash and patience. The envelope from the county slid through the mail slot with a soft shush that didn't belong to any other day. I wiped paint from my fingers on a rag, cracked the seal, and felt the kitchen tilt. Recording confirmation, the header said bold enough to bruise. I read her the instrument number. The words came like fence posts, presented, accepted, recorded. "Quitclaim deed," she said. "We wanted to handle it so you didn't have to stress." Emily looked from him to me, a pendulum trying to find center. We've had so much paperwork lately. I could feel the shape of the day in my bones. The clinic's antiseptic smell, the nurse's latex gloves, snapping the receipt folded into my wallet, the way the second coat of paint flashed silver in the late light when I got home. I wrote the instrument number on an index card and clipped it to the front. "Let's clear it up tomorrow," Mark said, pouring water into glasses with exaggerated care, his voice one size too calm. "I have a copy of the deed. Should we look at it? It's standard." He had a copy. He brought a manila folder from the bedroom and set it on the table between us like a placemat for the conversation. Beside the signature block, a notary acknowledgement. The California all-caps language I recognized, boxed in and officious. On date before me, notary name notary. Public personally appeared John Alvarez, who proved to me on the basis of satisfactory evidence to be the person whose name is subscribed to the within instrument and acknowledged to me that he executed the same. A seal embossed hard enough to leave ridges in the notary's signature. "Dad, look, the notary," she said, tapping the seal. "They wouldn't stamp it if... that's the whole point of a notary, right?" "The whole point," Mark echoed, gentle. "May I?" asked and took the copy. I'd been a man in that office once with Maria ID. Under a lamp eyes, compared to picture the thunk of the stamp thunder as honest as weather. Or, we signed so many forms. "I know the day I was at the clinic," I said. "I know the way paint dries on a west window in August." It sounded like a poem, or like madness. Acknowledgements are supposed to mean a person sat down in front of a stranger, showed tangible proof they were themselves, and said, "Yes, that's mine." But I wasn't going to argue case law in my kitchen, not with my daughter's faith on one side and the county's seal on the other. Everyone is protected. He set a glass of water in front of me like a prize for reaching an agreement. I opened my planner to the small sleeve where I'd tucked the clinic's visit summary. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. When I came back inside, Alex was in the kitchen with a spoon and the leftover beans, shoulders lifted like someone halfway through a stretch. "Long day," I said. His thumb dragged across the raised notary seal through the plastic sleeve. "Feels real," he said softly. The next morning, Mark suggested we stop by the notary to put my mind at ease. He had a cards, of course he did, mobile notary 24/7, but he said the man also kept hours at a storefront near the strip mall. "They'll look it up in the journal," Mark said, "and you'll see. I'll go," I said. "Of course," he said, with a small smile that treated my independence like a quirk. A glass counter displayed rows of stamps in different sizes, as if you could buy authority retail. "I'm looking for your acknowledgement on a deed," I said, placing the copy on the counter. He checked the seal, nodded once, and pulled a black book from under the counter to his journal. "Yes," he said. "Personally appeared John Alvarez with California ID, signature taken. May I see the ID number you wrote?" I asked, aiming for friendly, the way you ask for a refill of coffee. I didn't say anything. "Everything's recorded," I said, and thanked him. "It's a kind of armor. They have a journal entry," I said. "They have an ID number." "Great," he said quickly, smiling at Emily as if I'd given them a green light. A ghost of green still lived there, pale as a grass stain. What I needed to hear, I said, was the sound of my own pen on a page. I set the copy down. He took calls on the porch about timelines and leveraging voice, lowered, and told me over dinner that he'd found a great product that might let us tap equity responsibly. It wasn't a lie exactly. It was a summary of a plan that had already found its way into the world. Monday, clinic lobby sanitizer visit summary in red folder. Afternoon, painted west window, green on wrist. Tuesday, county mail, recording confirmation, moved to white folder. Wednesday, notary storefront, journal, ID number. I'd learned to watch the manila folder every time it came out the way you watch a magician's hands. A house is not a structure, it is a running inventory of who you are. When someone tries to edit that inventory without your permission, you start protecting nouns, deed title, owner, father. "You know I'm doing this to protect you," he said. "That's what family does." "Family keeps what it takes," I said. "Exactly," he said, as if we agreed. In my head, the words presented, accepted, recorded clicked into place again, a machinery I could neither stop nor ignore. He didn't ask what we were doing there. "Tell me the day I went to the clinic," I said. He did minute by minute like a kid reciting a playbook. You came back around 11 with a Band-Aid in the crook of your arm. You painted the window after lunch. You told me not to lean on it because it was still tacky. And what did I get in the mail the next day? The county letter, he said. Quick, I put the planner on the workbench, opened it to the plastic sleeve and looked at the visit summary without reading. Some would be the kind only a house can make paint on a wrist the way light moves across a room in August. I didn't know yet which kind would matter more. Mini CTA. To listeners is when the paperwork and even a notary seem to be stacked against you. Would you keep quiet to keep the peace or retrace every minute to fight back? Conflict. Part 4B. First-person podcast. Narrative, John. After the notary's journal, Mark tailored a story about me and wore it everywhere. I'm taking the load so he can relax. He moved to harmonize the insurance, his word, so the policy matched the updated ownership. Forms appeared, signature lines circled in pale blue. Acknowledgements, he said, tapping where my pen should go. I turned the pages sideways. Coverage worked last month, I said. Best practice, he said. He began standing beside me when I opened the mail, narrating calm. See, I counted instruments. At dinner, he floated a bank idea. Add me to your profile. Got a minute? He set a USB drive on the bench, red lanyard looped over his finger. The app keeps a scan history. There's a file called ID John Scan from last week. The corners clipped the glare bends. I didn't open it. I put the drive in the top drawer. The printer hiccups and spits a half page with a gray band through the middle. The smile is gone. His face has the flat look of a man arguing with a screen. Emily appears in the doorway, takes in the angle of his shoulders, and says his name like a warning. Sorry, he says softer. The gray band covers most of the text, but you can make out a footer. /scan ID, John scan copy 1. Mark's jaw tightens, then loosens. Emily rubs the back of her neck like she's working out a knot that isn't in her muscles. Some cracks don't widen right away. They listen to the weight you put on them. Beside carpenter pencils and spare blades. Thank you, I said. Kindness doesn't need a seal, I said. The next morning I drove to the clinic for a printed visit log check-in checkout date. You can pull this from the portal, the clerk said. She slid the pages through the slot. Then I called the recorder and enrolled in the property document alert, the service that pings you if anything new gets filed against your parcel. The automated voice was brisk. I gave it my APN and email and waited for the confirmation ding. That afternoon, Mark softened his pitch. We should celebrate, he said, palms open. I had a son in the house when I needed one, I said, and didn't glance toward the garage. Later, he slid an acknowledgement of transfer across the table, downloaded from somewhere not county paper. Signature here helps banks square their records, he said. Then you won't mind if I don't sign, I said. I respect that. I began photographing ordinary facts, the green line at my wrist where paint had settled the west window in late light, the porch at 5:12 p.m., when the USPS truck throws the same rectangle of shadow every weekday. You're building a timeline, Alex said. On Friday, I called an attorney, a boring one, a factory friend recommended after a mechanic's lean mix-up. Bring everything, she said. I stuck a note on the white folder, do not sign anything, and another on the front door, ask for a copy first. Bring deed copy, county confirmation notary card. Clinic, ask about lobby camera retention, request in writing if needed. DMV verified driver license formats, barcode standards, print green wrist photo with timestamp. Ask Alex to write his timeline, not tell it. Before bed, I opened the drawer, plugged in the USB, and looked. My face stared back from a driver's license scan, too sharp in places, too slippery in others. The corner was cropped a hair close. The lamination glare bent where clean scans don't bend. I saved a copy under a new name, ejected the drive like a tiny ritual, and shut off the kitchen light. I needed a book of my own. Morning has a way of telling the truth before anyone else tries. The light is kinder, the rooms are quieter, and the coffee smells like something you can trust. I stand at the sink, steam rolling off the mug, and listen to the slow tick of the kitchen clock. On my wrist, that thin green line of paint has faded to a shy whisper, still there if you know where to look. Like a thought you haven't said out loud yet. I take the paper calendar from the fridge and tear off yesterday. The sound is small, the sort of sound that keeps a man anchored when bigger ones want to lift him by his collar. That's the difference I decide to honor this morning, with the coffee still hot and the sun not yet sharp. They can chase my signature across a page. They can't make me sign myself away. Maybe I've let silence sit at the table too long because peace is precious and a shouting match is a poor breakfast. But there's a kind of silence that is not surrender. It's the wind-up before a pitch. I tell myself this out loud to the coffee, because the room is where I can hear it without anyone translating it back at me. I will not sign anything else. Not because a form has a box where my name would look tidy, not because someone I love thinks tidy means safe. The frame catches the light at a slant, and her smile does that trick it always did, turning my chest into a room big enough for hope and grief at the same time. I promised her I would keep this roof. I did not promise to break our children to do it. I want to be firm beside that gentleness so it means something. But he's got a way of stopping in the doorway and noticing what's missing. Precision isn't always tidy. Sometimes it's the instinct to look twice because you know what it costs to look once and be wrong. When he stood beside me in the garage and said nothing, that nothing steadied me. Mark does a lot of small things right in the daylight. Real care slides in under your life and lifts. The paper is heavy, the ink confident like a narrator who doesn't realize he's missing a chapter. Next to it I lay the visit summary from the clinic thinner paper, sharp ink, the corners still square, because I don't thumb medical sheets the way I thumb bills. It looks humble beside the county's voice, like a teacher's note written in the margin of a textbook. Sometimes it's the one with a timestamp and the smell of hand sanitizer. I press each tab flat with the side of my thumb. I write in block letters the way I do when I want the future version of me to hear me clearly. Then I pull an index card and write a sentence for my wallet. I will be present at every table that writes my name. I fold the card and tuck it behind my driver's license, a reminder to the man I am when the room is loud. There is a softer task I've been putting off because generosity is its own kind of vulnerability, giving Lily the thing I saved for. I ask Emily if Lily can come out to the porch for a minute, the two of us. She softens around the joy, which is how you know it's real. For you, I say. For the little engineer I see in your frown when you fix things. Emily steps into the doorway and covers her mouth with her fingers. Mark behind her wears surprise like a shirt he didn't pick. He recovers quickly, nodding the approval you offer when you want to be the captain of gratitude. I was called cheap last month for refusing to back a set of tickets no one needed. After Lily goes back inside to show her mother how the pen writes like a real one, I sit on the step with Alex. Your timeline. You want it like an affidavit, he says, then grins a little. I hear the gentle metal of his promise and think of all the ways men hold each other up without speeches. Inside, I take the notary card and slide it to the back of a drawer. I put a piece of tape over the scanner's mouth, the little slot at the edge of the machine on the dining room table. I let the shape of it form in the space under my ribs where stubbornness lives with patience. Later at the sink, I wash the coffee mug from the morning. Of the fact that small borders matter, edges taped straight, strokes laid clean, a room finished one line at a time. Some people carry it like a shield, some people hide behind it, some wield it like a weapon. When Mark talks about protection and paperwork and best practices, the bubble slides to his side of the glass. When Alex writes times and places and the county's envelope rustles with its thick certainty, the bubble finds center again. Before bed, I take the index card from my wallet and read the sentence aloud at the kitchen table. I will be present at every table that writes my name. I add a second line beneath it. Smaller, I will not sign myself away. I put the card back. I turn off the overhead light and leave on the little lamp over the stove, the one Maria and I called the night light for grown-ups. Maybe it's what resolve looks like when it's still soft enough to adjust and hard enough not to break. Somewhere down the block, a dog nails the laugh of a coyote and then decides he's heard enough. I think of the things I can promise without anyone else's permission. I will not be hurried. I will not mistake the most official voice for the only honest one. If this part of the story resonated, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below so others can find the courage or the calm they need. Emily. Between two rooms, insert scene, Emily stands in the doorway between the kitchen and the hall, like someone testing which room will hold. Mom, look, Lily calls. Emily steps to the table, touches the edge of the device like it might vanish if she presses too hard. Finish your spelling first, she says, voice soft, and Lily nods without looking up. Emily's eyes shine the way they do when she wants to cry, but doesn't want anyone to carry it for her. The visit summary looks like ordinary truth check-in vitals lab draw checkout. Behind it, a paid medical bill with her name from a year she'd rather skip. She recognizes my handwriting in the memo, paid in full. I know what a notary is supposed to mean. I know you keep them. The message sits in drafts like a bird that won't fly out of her hands. Back in the kitchen, Mark reaches for the laptop to optimize settings. Emily covers the screen with her palm. We'll need sequence, the attorney said. I laid my life out in colors: white for the county letter, red for the clinic visit summary, and billing blue for the will, and mortgaged the manila folder Mark had produced and my planner with the plastic sleeve that held the day in question. She uncapped a pen, drew a 3-column table, and wrote across the top in block letters, "Time document, human fact." Any other events? The next day I said the notary storefront. His journal shows a California ID for John Alvarez and a signature taken. "And you have your own ID current?" she asked. I slid my wallet across, took out the license, and placed it on the pad. "We'll compare formats," she said. "California license numbers follow consistent patterns. The barcode on the back PDF for I've been seen also carries data. But we'll have a technician say that instead of a poet. We'll also formalize your alibi. They scanned and numbered everything. Chain of custody," she said to me without looking up. "When the story goes to court, we want to show who carried which sentence when." She made a call to the clinic's records department with me present, then handed me a HIPAA form. "We'll need the visit log with check-in and check-out times," she said into the phone, "and any written confirmation of the lobby camera retention policy." She hung up. "Some clinics keep footage for a week, some for 30 days. We won't bet on video unless policy says we can, but we will bet on their timestamps." "And the notary?" I asked. "We'll examine his journal entry, then ask him to explain his process," she said. "If he was fooled by an ID that could pass a glance but not scrutiny, that's not your crime." The technician arrived with a flat scanner the size of a cutting board and fingers that moved like she was playing a careful piano. I gave her the digital file Alex had pulled from the scan history ID, John Scan. She didn't wince, didn't smirk. She put it side by side with a fresh high-resolution scan of my actual license and began talking in a language made of lines and angles, the barcode. "Let's extract." She typed, and bands of black and white became data that should have matched the front. She said. "Check some fails on the PDF for one scene. Also here." She zoomed into the license number. "Your real license has a character set consistent with issued sequences, and there are mistakes that are the children of intent. Don't decide motive," the attorney said quickly, reading my face. "Decide facts. The notary's journal says a John Alvarez appeared with a California ID. You have evidence that the ID used to represent John Alvarez may not be a valid California ID. That isn't the same thing as accusing the notary of conspiracy. Ask 10 people how a license should look under a lamp," she said dryly, "and 9 will say, like a license. We will ask an expert." She drew a square around the words ID discrepancy and underlined it. Before we left, she set the tip of her pen on the paper and didn't move it. "One more thing," she said. "You cannot sign anything presented to you, no matter how framed, without me in the room or on the phone." I've been telling myself the same thing I said. "Good," she said. We walked to the clinic together that afternoon because it was easier to drive in one car than to count cars in the parking lot. The receptionist recognized me. Kindness has a face if you pay attention, and printed the visit log check-in time, 8:03 a.m., vitals at 8:17, lab draw at 8:29, checkout at 10:42. The paper was thin, but the ink didn't waver. "Lobby cameras?" the attorney asked, her voice tuned to polite efficiency. Back at the office, Alex was waiting in the parking lot, jittery energy contained in a sweatshirt. He had a printed timeline in his hand, 3 pages double-spaced. "You said verbs," he told me, a little proud and a little scared. He described the photograph in Mark's camera roll that showed legal forms on Airbnb Woodgrain, Monday evening, 8:26 p.m. He included a screenshot of the file names in the scanner app's cache and the timestamps that didn't match any session with me at the dining table. The attorney initialed each page. "We'll attach this to your declaration," she told him. "You did that. We spent an hour more building the package no one would see on television, page numbers and exhibits, and a table of contents that clicked like a well-made drawer." The attorney drafted a motion that used words like voidable and defective acknowledgement language that turns a house back from a noun someone tried to kidnap into a person who belongs at home. I signed my declaration where I was, what I did, what I didn't do. There are times when the truth needs poetry. Court is not one of them. I didn't accuse. I didn't posture. I set the red paper next to the white paper, the expert report next to the notary's tidy stamp. "Dad," she said, pressing her fingers to her lips. You don't have to decide tonight," I said. "You will not be asked to pick between your husband and me like the last cake at a birthday. You will be asked to look at paper and decide which paper belongs to the day it says it does." Mark came in, then his smile already running the script he'd given it all week. "We can sign something to make this simpler," he offered, an acknowledgement. "These forms I will not sign," I said gently. "If the book is so dear to you, we will read it out loud carefully together." "Dad," Emily said softly, a warning and a plea. "Your father can have his attorney call mine?" Mark said, shifting his weight tone, dipping into professional. "I'm trying to protect you," he said. "It requires my presence." The attorney filed the motion the next morning and requested an expedited hearing, clean, narrow, and aimed exactly where it needed to land on the validity of the acknowledgement and the integrity of the ID presented. We notified the recorder's office and the parcel got flagged so any new filings would be held up against a bright light. Alex came in with a stack of printed photos, my wrist with the paint line, the west window at 4:37 p.m., the porch shadow at 5:12 p.m., the mail slot at 11:34. He laid them out and wrote times in pencil beneath each one before I could ask. "Chain of custody," he said, grinning. By the weekend, an aunt on Emily's side had called to ask if I was all right and told me kindly and loudly that Mark was taking on so much work to help an overwhelmed father-in-law. I slid the card back and felt it square against the leather like a small shield. Monday morning came with fog and a court date. The attorney called before 9. "We're on the docket," she said. "End of the week. The notary will be there. Bring your wrist if that line hasn't washed out by then." "It's faint," I said, "but I know where to look." "Good," she said. "Dad," she said, "I don't know how to stand in the middle of this." "You don't have to stand in the middle," I told her. When the mail slot clapped and the letter slid onto the floor, a notice of hearing plain as a grocery list, I didn't flinch. The courtroom lights are colder than any kitchen bulb I own, the kind that bleach color from faces and paper. I sit with my red folder under my palm, the clinic's visit summary whispering antiseptic through plastic, while across the aisle, Mark wears his good son expression like a pressed shirt. A stamp thuds. My attorney stands without theatrics. "Sequence matters," she says. She offers the clinic log check-in, 8:03 a.m., check-out, 10:42. The notary takes the stand. "Sir, your process," he recites, "personally appeared satisfactory evidence journal seal, and the ID. California driver's license," he says, pointing at his journal entry with my name beside a number. She slides a monitor toward him. We retained a technician to review the image of the ID presented and Mr. Alvarez's actual license. 2 versions of me, one honest, one off by a hair in ways that count. "See the barcode?" she asks. "When decoded, the data fails checksum." He blinks. "I don't decode barcodes," he admits. "And the license number pattern California issuance doesn't use that character in that position," she says for Mr. Alvarez's issuance window. Objection. The judge lets in what matters. My attorney stays boring in the right way. If an ID were counterfeit or degraded such that these discrepancies appeared, she asks, should it have been accepted as satisfactory evidence? His professionalism fights his pride and finally wins. "Not if I had known," he says. I was fooled. Emily at court, insert scene from the second row. Emily stands before anyone tells her to, "Your Honor." She says, voice steady enough to be brave and thin enough to be true. "I'm not a party to this motion, but I am the daughter in the middle of it." The judge studies her over the glasses. Briefly, he says. She nods. "I believed paperwork would keep us safe. I pushed my father to trust the stamp because I didn't know how to question it. If I helped create a mess, I'll help clean it. I need the record to match the real day. My daughter is learning that honesty is a setting, not a sticker." She looks at me, then at Mark, and the room hears the choice she is trying not to make. "Thank you," the judge says. "Counsel will continue." Emily sits. Her hands are still, her eyes are not. Whatever happens next, she has set it where it counts in a room that writes things down. We return to ours. She threads the clinic log through the notary's entry. At the time this acknowledgement was purportedly taken, she says, Mr. Alvarez's blood pressure was being measured 2 miles away. The judge asks if I have anything to add. Only this, I say. I know the sound of my own pen on my own page. I didn't hear it that day. Mark tries one last angle. Signing earlier and bringing later is common. My attorney answers, California acknowledgments require personal appearance. The notary's journal says, personally appeared. Either the man was not Mr. Alvarez or the ID was not the license the state issued him. Either way, the acknowledgement is defective. The judge looks down, then up. The court finds that the quitclaim deed, though recorded, relied on an acknowledgement supported by identification not shown to be valid. The acknowledgement is defective. The quitclaim deed is void. A stamp comes down, thud. The recorder is ordered to reflect the same. The sound in my chest isn't triumph, it's pressure leaving. Emily grips my sleeve and cries the quiet way that undoes me. Dad. I'm sorry, she says. I cover her hand. The truth next time. Over her shoulder, Alex gives a nod small as a nailhead. Mark's face splits public hurt, private calculation, then stills. For once, there isn't a script handy. We step into the hallway where fluorescent lights hum. Outside, heat slaps the stone. Halfway down the steps, my phone buzzes. Property document alert. A few steps behind us, Mark's phone lights up. He dials with his thumb too many times, voice high and thin, as he says, Hi, yes, this is a mistake. Cancel it. Then pivots when he catches my eye and pretends he's ordering lunch. The mask is back, but it's crooked. A new filing has been initiated against your parcel. A lender's name I don't recognize. A phrase I do home equity line pre-approval pending. At the same moment, the mail carrier pushes up the path cart rattling. Certified for John Alvarez. The envelope bears the same lender's logo. Inside, we're delighted to continue processing your application. Additional identity verification requested. The date is last week before the void order, when the paper still pretended I was half a ghost in my own house. I look at Emily, at Alex, at the courthouse doors that swing like saloon doors. It isn't over, I say. Someone tried to turn the walls into collateral. I tuck the alert into the folder and the folder into my grip. There's a new book to read now. Lenders KYC fraud departments that move slow until you press the right button. Behind me, my attorney is already on the phone telling someone to freeze and flag. Exhibit H add-on. On the courthouse steps, my attorney lowers her voice. We didn't even use Exhibit H today, she says. What's H, I ask. The journal thumbprint box for the deed. In California, notaries take a right thumbprint for deeds. His page for your appearance. She pauses. The box is blank. Why hold it back? Because the next fight isn't a stamp fight, she says. It's a banking fight. We'll use H when someone insists they've verified identity in the abstract. We'll ask them which thumb they shook. I picture the little square in the notary's book, empty as a wink, and feel the ground tilt the other way. There's more paper in this story. Some of it still belongs to me. If any part of your home has ever felt like it could be stolen by paper, subscribe and tell me in the comments how you'd chase a ghost through a bank's maze. Next time we go where the money tried to go. Emily pushes back. Insert scene. That night after the printer episode, the house held still. From the hallway, Emily's voice carried low. Not afraid. Stop treating my dad like a form you can fill for him, she told Mark. No more acknowledgments, no more harmonizing policies. If you love me, prove it by stopping. I'm trying to protect you both, he said. Paperwork. Protection includes his presence, Emily said. If he isn't in the room, nothing moves. If your plan requires him out of the way, it isn't a plan for this family. He reached for her arm. She stepped back. Until Dad's attorney says otherwise, there are no signatures, no banks, no new accounts. And if any application has my name, withdraw it. Tonight. I stood in the dark dining room and listened to her words rearrange the furniture of our house, making space for the truth to sit down. If you were in my place, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next story. Stay safe, drink water, and take care of yourself. Thank you for watching.